When I started translating the scriptures 15 years ago, I thought that all I had to do was merely go to the original sources, the Ancient Aramaic, the language that Jesus spoke, and that everyone would see that these are the authentic scriptures. And then I finished the New Testament, and almost everyone that came to my webpage was enthusiastic about the New Testament. And I finished the New Testament about 10 years ago, so about 5 years of translation. And the New Testament essentially is a small part of the Bible. It's only about, 1/4 of it, or even 1/5 of it. Then I started translating the Old Testament, the book of Genesis, Exodus. I published these, but there was not a lot of interest in these, and I was really amazed, because the book of Genesis and Exodus really were very revealing, and the way I translated them from the original, there was a lot of new revelation. However, the Old Testament was really somewhat discarded by the Christian churches. It was considered like a history. But yet, when Jesus came to the world, he always talked about Moses writing about him, Abraham speaking about him, the prophets prophesying about him. But the Western Christians did not seem to get this message. And they're always looking for ways to say, aha, you see, these are different proofs that are in the Old Testament that Yeshua is the Messiah. Well, everything in the Old Testament is about Yeshua the Messiah. It's about Jesus the Messiah. And his whole message was that I am the Messiah prophesied by the scriptures, and the revelation that he is Allah Habibusr, or God in the flesh. And so he said it openly, especially in the Gospel of John. So after I translated Genesis, Exodus, Jonah, Daniel, Malachi, Zechariah, in Zechariah you have chapter 3, verse 3, where the name of Yeshua, Jesus, is mentioned verbatim. And so I really wondered why people are not responding to the Old Testament books that clearly prophesied about Yeshua. Then I translated Isaiah, and he speaks about the coming of Yeshua, the coming of the apostolic age, and it's apocalyptic. In other words, it goes all the way to the end of the universe. So that's the first apocalyptic book, the book of Isaiah. And it's almost like a complete scripture by itself, so that in those times when they had this scroll, the book of Isaiah, when they read the scroll of Isaiah, some communities, that's all they had. And this was, of course, in Old Testament times. Then Yeshua came, and he read from the book of Isaiah in the synagogue in Capernaum, and he spoke about the prophets that prophesied about him. But still, today, modern Christianity doesn't go by what Yeshua said regarding the prophets, the law and the prophets. They think that the Old Testament was for the Jews and the New Testament is for the Christians. So they drive a complete wedge between Judaism and modern Christianity. And there is no need to separate the two. They dovetail together. And this was what the letters of Paul were all about. He wrote about how the Old Testament was fulfilled in the New Testament, and how the New Testament draws from the Old Testament. So then the book of Jeremiah, and Isaiah, when I finished these, I waited years, and no response from Western Christianity. They only want the New Testament. And the New Testament, they believe, was translated in Greek. Everybody tolerates my translation from the Ancient Aramaic. They said, well, that's good, it adds to the knowledge. But my translation is a breakthrough. So I really hope at some point Western Christianity is going to come and realize that by using all these names and words that are not scriptural, that they're following the wrong path. And the interpretations are coming all wrong. So it's time to return to the true knowledge of the ancient Aramaic scriptures, the scriptures that Yeshua read from, the scriptures that clearly prophesy about Yeshua, Jesus the Messiah, and begin to understand the truth about every word that Yeshua uttered and every prophecy that the prophets prophesied. Thank you for listening, and I hope you'll come back and you'll look at other video programs that I will post here.